It is Wednesday. I don't know why in my mind I'm thinking Thursday. It's Wednesday. And Wednesday ni siku ya kliniki ya mfuko. Bench tumeweka hapo nje. We sanitized it as usual. Mkae mki-maintain distance 1.5 to 2 meters. Social distancing as you come in with your issues. Today we talk about mistakes that we make financially. And I was asking you, what financial mistake have you made that you remember? This one says, I paid a fundi all the cash for my furniture, and he has never brought 2 pieces of my furniture. That was 2 years ago. Ujinga ni mbaya. You know, some people said fundi mzuri ni wanywele. Mnamalizana hapo hapo. In studio today, we are so blessed to have Tesha Mongi. Tesha Mongi is a hey, the lawyer in me is coming to the surface. Personal finance enthusiast. Karibu sana, Tesha. How are you doing?
I'm fine, and asante sana. I'm very excited to be here.
We are also excited to have you because we know we are about to learn a thing or two from you concerning financial mistakes. And I believe you have a passion for this because it touches you personally. You have a story to tell that you have learned from.
Yes, I have a story to tell. Mm-hmm. You know, when this happened, and I'll go into the details, when this happened, I used to say that, God, if I get out of this situation,
yes,
one day I'll share my story. So I didn't know when that one day was, because I've not really told so many people this story. Mm-hmm. But I just said, one day. So I think one day is today.
One day has finally dawned on you.
Yes.
Yes. So where does your story begin?
So my story begins in end of 2006, 2007. Uh-huh. And that was 4 years after campus, going to 5 years after, 4 years after campus. 2007 was the beginning of the 5th year.
Yeah.
And I started feeling disgruntled about just generally my life.
Yeah.
I was not happy where I was. And you see, my peers had 4 things. Mm-hmm. They had 1 spouse, mm-hmm. 2 children,
hallelujah,
a 3-bedroomed house, and a 4-wheel drive. And
hey,
I, on the other side, had nothing to write home about.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I just thought, I need to change my status. Okay. And so I scanned the environment, and then I found this investment, which I thought this would accelerate my pace. In fact, I would surpass my peers. And so I did the calculation, and I was like, this is it.
This is it.
This is it. And so when I did the calculations, the only way that I could enter into that investment was to go and get a loan. So I got a bank loan.
Yes.
That time, the bank was giving unsecured loans. All you needed was a payslip.
Yes.
So if you had a payslip, it was a guarantee. And so within 2 weeks of filling in the banking requirements, the money was in my account.
Ooh.
And I remember the excitement.
Yeah.
I had never received so much money in my account. And so every morning and every lunchtime and every evening, I would just go to the ATM just to print
the receipt.
To print the receipt and see the balance.
Hallelujah.
Little did I know that a fool and his money, or in my case, her money, are soon parted. Mm-hmm. And so no sooner had I put the money in the investment.
Mm-hmm. You put all of it?
The only thing that I have as a remembrance of that is a bed that I got made for 8,000 bob at Kaloleni. But so let me just give you more details. This was 800,000 shillings.
Both.
And 800,000 shillings that time was a lot of money. The present value of 800,000 shillings today is more than 2.5 million shillings.
Wow.
800,000 shillings was equivalent to about 2 years of my earnings. Wow. I mean, 800,000 shillings went. As in, it went with the pyramids of Clip, Sasanet, Desi. So there were all those kind of things.
Oh, my goodness.
And in 1 week, I lost 800,000 shillings.
There, 1 week.
So it was a very...
Backtrack a bit.
Yes.
Backtrack a bit. This story is of personal interest to me because I also lost some money in Desi. I'm just curious, how did you who told you about these pyramid schemes? For me, it was my pastor. My pastor, my friend. he told me, man, there's something here, the blessing of the Lord. And so like you, I also took some money from somewhere and injected it in there. For you, how did you know about them?
So for Desi, I think, because when I started scanning the environment,
Yeah.
well, it wasn't Desi, but it was Clip and Sasanet.
Yeah.
I found people who are doing it.
Uh-huh.
People would say, this thing is bringing me 10%.
Yeah.
So it was friends, it was relatives, people who had gotten in there. And I had actually seen them, people were putting in 500,000 and they were getting 10% per month.
Yes.
Some of those schemes were giving you your checks in advance.
Yes.
So you would have your checks for, from January to December.
Ooh.
And so I was like, for sure, this
guaranteed.
works.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to a friend of mine, and he told me, don't you think that there's a problem with those schemes because the banks are not putting their money there? So I was like, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I have seen this thing work, and I am sure it's going to work.
Okay.
And I think the first time I remember when I wrote out a check, I went to the bank. This was for Desi. I wrote out a check for Desi. When I went to the bank, the lady at the counter, just told me, when I was actually doing a banker's check,
Yeah.
and she said, these things don't work. So then I thought maybe Desi is not the good scheme. So I put some money in Clip and I put some money in Sasanet.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, so the 800,000 went, and the bed I was sleeping on was what was left. And so, now I can laugh about it.
Yeah.
But I remember that time I could not sleep. And the moment I fell asleep, I would wake up in panic attacks. So it was nights and nights of panic. And I learned to just, at one night I woke up and I held myself and I told myself, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. So when I used to panic, then I would remember to do that and it would calm me down.
Okay.
Now, let me give you the reasons why I was panicking.
Okay.
So I was panicking because, one, I am a firstborn. And firstborns are supposed to be responsible,
Yes.
leaders, examples. And
Show
then
the
here,
way.
Here, I've gotten myself in irresponsible,
Yes.
in a irresponsible behavior. And what was happening at that time was, I now started, because it was a mess. When I had calculated how to take the loan, I said, what is the minimum I can live on? And the minimum was bus fare, because I knew that the money would come back in.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll be getting 10% every month. So I just had bus fare, in that loan. And so it was a complete mess. I would get messages from the bank. Please deposit 1,000 bob because we are about to clear a check and you don't have sufficient funds. So by the time I figure out who to borrow from money in the office, rush to the bank, they have charged me 2,500.
Oh, my goodness.
That is 3,500.
Yeah.
So I was in a mess. So that was the first thing that, I was a firstborn, and then this was just irresponsible
yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
The second thing was I was a part qualified accountant.
Ooh.
I was an accountant in training.
Yes.
I had graduated from Bachelor of Commerce. I mean, in fact, I am one of the people where, when the list came out, the University of Nairobi said, we want you to come here. So, so you can imagine that I should have had some level of intelligence.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I wasn't working for any regular firm. I was working for the big five audit firms.
Wow.
And so you can imagine I had access to financial experts, I had access to information, I had access to everything. Yet, here I was found in a situation of, of quandary and of foolishness. So, it was so embarrassing. I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't go for lunch because that time, of course, Koseo was the hit.
Yes.
They had just moved from Cameo to Nation Center, and everyone was going there for lunch. And people would ask me, Tasha, why are you not going for lunch? And I'd say, I'm keeping figure. And so people thought I am keeping figure.
Yes.
But the truth was, I just couldn't afford it.
Wow.
And the third thing was, I was a Christian, I am a Christian, born again Christian,
Hallelujah.
Holy Ghost filled,
Oh my goodness.
church going Christian, serving.
Yes.
And then this happens, and I was like, God, why didn't you protect me? I have served you for so many years. I have been faithful. I do what your word says. I was like, God, didn't you see how much tithe would come out of this? And so that's what happened.
Yeah.
And I mean, it took a couple of months for me to figure out what to do. And I remember I remember one night just saying, this thing will either break me or it will make me.
Yes.
So I need to choose which way.
Yeah.
Because what happens when you lose so much? At least you can say, okay, I lost 1,000 shillings and I can recover it, I can recover it easily. This was a 5-year commitment with a bank.
Yeah.
And so it meant that I was going to be enslaved for 5 years.
5
The Bible says that the borrower,
I'm telling you, is slave to the lender.
is the slave to the lender.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, what will I do? So I said, again, I went to the 3 things that were causing me panic. I said, I am a firstborn, and so I will behave responsibly.
Yeah.
And because in such a situation, when you see Ponyoka na pickup on TV or Shinda na,
Yes.
and you're just like, I wish I could get into those things. But I made a resolve that my behavior would be responsible and that I would not follow that path because there are many crooked ways of making money.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll follow the straight and narrow. The second thing was I was an accountant. And I said, the things that I learned in school, okay, fine, I used to say that I am an artist. I didn't want to do accounting, so I'm here by default. I should have gone to do fine art and interior design, or I should have been an architect. I said, hello, you are an accountant.
Yeah.
You graduated with this degree. You are pursuing this qualification. Can you live? This is where you are now.
Yeah.
And so I said I would be the best accountant that I can be for myself. If I'm doing the books for other organizations and they are happy with their results, they are getting unqualified audit reports, I was like, that must translate in my life.
Yeah.
I should have my own income statement. I should have my balance sheet. I really need to be my own accountant.
Yes.
And the third thing was, as I said, the third thing, because I was a Christian, I said, God, maybe I missed something. I missed something in your word. I missed something because your word says that we shall not be the tail, but we shall be the head. So I was like, maybe I missed something. And so I began to search scripture.
Wow.
And I started saying, what does the word of God say about this? I listened to teachings and I listened to many things. And when it comes to money, I think people say it's a taboo topic. It's a rude subject. Things have become better now. People can talk about it. But back then, you could not even talk about your mistakes.
Yes.
And I remember just wishing, I wish I had heard people's stories so that I can know that there's a wrong way to go and there's a right way to go.
Yeah.
Because financial issues can really stress you.
Yeah. Wow. Do you have a question for my guest this morning? Maybe you've made similar mistakes and you want to share your experience as well. 20316 is the SMS line. WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. Remember, we are talking about financial mistakes and we are learning from Tasha this morning concerning what she went through and what she was able to do to recover and where she is at now. So SMS is on 20316, WhatsApp 0786 316 316. It is Wednesday. We have the financial clinic today. We are looking at financial mistakes. In studio with us, personal finance enthusiast Tasha Mongi, sharing lessons she learned from her own life. Faith, you're listening in from Kisumu. How are you doing? You say, one thing I learned after losing money to a pyramid scheme is never ever borrow money to fund such ventures. Faith, that's a good lesson right there. So Tasha, here you are, you've borrowed the money, you've put it into these schemes, they fail. Now you are in debt. You can't even have lunch at work. How do you get out of that situation?
So, what happened? So, one of the nights of panic, I remember waking up and I said, this needs to end. I mean, the panic, it's pain, it's embarrassment, it's hopelessness, it's desolation. So there's a lot of things that happen at night, especially because during the day you can work and immerse yourself in work.
Yes.
But at night, one of the nights I woke up and I said, this has to end. And for the first time, I woke up and I did a budget. I had never done a personal budget, but I woke up and I did a budget. And so I said, what's my net salary this month? What are my expenses? I looked at it and I said, oh my God, I look like I'm in trouble, but at least I know that I don't want to default on the loan obligation because I can't imagine them coming and calling the office.
Yes.
So just trying to organize my finances in a certain way. And then when I did the month budget, because it was October, when now I finally, just said, okay, what do I do? So I said, I think I need to do a 1 year budget so that I can see I can see how I will manage, how I'll manage the expenses, because I was feeling like so overwhelmed. And I was doing it on an exercise book. And then I said, this loan is a period of 5 years. Let me do a 5-year budget.
Yeah.
And I was doing this at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. at night. And what would happen was every time I would panic, when I would wake up, I would look at it and say, at least I've paid for 2 months. And I read someone's story, and I remember just speaking something from there and saying, if God gives me life, I will come out of this.
Yes.
And if he enables me to work, I will come out of this. And so it meant that my budget was so strict. The first year was extremely painful because I was the kind of person who, if I showed up to work and I didn't have earrings, I would just, leave my desk, because our offices were in town that time, walk into a jewelry store, buy earrings. I was like, you can't operate with earrings the whole day. So those little expenses I could no longer do. If I wanted a dress, I would just walk into some shop, buy some suit. And that was kind of my life. There was a shop that was next to our office. I would go every single morning and buy chocolate. And
every morning.
And I wasn't buying regular chocolate. I was buying Bounty and Mars, and they were very expensive that time. And so that was the life that I was living then. But now it meant that I needed to pay a loan. I needed to be able to, you can remember that I only had bus fare, figure out how I live in that bus fare. And the most difficult thing for me was to have 200 shillings per month allocated for hair. Hair is essential for women. And it was 100 bob every 2 weeks for blow dry. And I tell you, it was such a difficult thing.
Yes.
Because then life changed, you disappear. Your friends cannot find you, because when they call you, you're at work. And I would just be at work or at home. And it was a difficult time. But budgeting, and many people feel like budgeting is something that chokes them or it controls them or something like that. But budgeting is a tool that you tell your money where it should go. Otherwise, if you don't tell your money where it should go, then your money will just disappear.
Yes.
So the first year, at least eventually the messages from the bank of deposit 500 bob, deposit 2,000 eventually stopped. Because then now I was saying I need to stick to this budget. I had a month where someone came and told me, someone needs to pay me tomorrow, just give me some money. I gave them, my salary had just checked in after paying everything. I think there was 20,000 in my account. I gave them. They never returned that money. Goodness. And so it messed me up for a couple of months. So the first year was really bad. And when you're going through debt recovery, you're this nasty person. In the office, you're trying to hide. You don't want people to know. Thankfully, I spoke to a friend of mine and I just told her, hey, let me just tell you what happened. So there's another colleague I told, and he really laughed. In fact, he was one of the witnesses in my, my bank loan forms. He was like, nyinyi wanawake, munapenda kugongwa sana. But I appreciated the people who laughed, because sometimes it's a saline solution that you need for your woundedness.
Yeah.
And so what happened was I talked to her, and she told me of a similar situation. Hers was an investment that went bad. And so we used to meet we just said, okay, what do we do? Let's meet and see how we are doing.
Yeah.
Let's meet for prayer. And it helped to have an accountability partner.
Yeah.
So the second year became easier. Now I almost knew offhand that these are my expenses, this is what I'm paying, this is how it goes down, you know?
You know what I like the most about what you're sharing is that you had a plan, you were working it out, you were not just praying and believing that your debt would be cancelled. Because I find a lot of us would rather go that way. You're always praying for God to cancel your debt, but you don't have a plan to repay it.
We always have to have a plan.
Yeah.
And a budget is the basic financial plan.
Yeah.
Governments use it.
Yes.
Organizations use it. So why, as individuals, should we say we cannot budget?
Yes.
I can tell you, without a budget, as simple as it is, I have seen my mom with a notebook where she would write what she has for the month, and that was her budget. And it can be as simple as that. We have right now, of course, there is Excel that people can use, but there are apps which people can use, and that helps. So what happened in the third year? In the third year, I finished the loan.
The third year?
In the third year.
Wow, not fifth year?
Not fifth year.
What did you do?
In the third year. And it was just the consistency of saying, this money has come in, it is for this purpose, and I cannot spend it in other areas.
Yes.
And then my budget had income and expenditure, and so that's how it looked like. And it had an investment section, because I had gotten some teaching from one of our pastors that said that 10% should go to giving, and then 60% to expenditure, and then 30% goes to investment. So that 30% you could break it into three, where you have an emergency fund, you have your short-term investments, and a retirement fund. And so I put it on Excel, and I said, I know right now my expenses is taking everything.
Yes.
But eventually it started moving. There was some movement where there was 0.1% is going to investments. I was now beginning to get back to tithing.
Yes.
And I remember just saying, God, I know I'm in arrears in tithe, but one day, easy arrears, I will pay them. I will just give my tithe. And so those were the commitments. And with time, I started seeing movement. I mean, at some point, expenditure was at 50%.
Wow.
And when I looked at that budget, because it had an income section, then I started saying I need income strategies. Because to kick debt out of my life, I need to figure out how am I getting out of. So what is the income? Do I need to get a better paying job? Do I need to get investments that are coming in? And remember, I had a 15-year budget. 15-month budget. So this 15-month budget, if I missed something this month, with Excel, you can manipulate it and say that I will push it to the next month. And so I could see the end of it. And, so when extra money was coming in, let's say it's SACCO dividends, I say this goes to the loan. Let it pay the loan. So any extra money that came in, I became so disciplined in that process. And so I'm telling you, in the third year, I went to the bank. I told them I want to offset this loan. They said, there's going to be a penalty. I said, charge the penalty. They said, are you sure? Because I now got to a place where I just said, let me get rid of this loan. And I remember now going to the loan section, they signed, and I wasn't sure that, the loan is over. And so after 1 week, they actually returned the penalty.
Okay.
And so I closed the account. I said, I never want to go to that bank. And I think I must have called my sister like 3 times. And she was like, you've called me and told me the loan is over. But yes, so the loan was over. And so in the 4th year, I got to a place that I haven't experienced again. And so it was a place called Plenty. There was a friend of mine who told me, when she heard my story, she really laughed, and she was like, why did you do such a foolish thing? So she was just giving me advice for her.
Yeah.
From her perspective, she said she bought her car cash, they buy their, and I thought that's such a myth. It can't happen. But in the 4th year, I was able to do that without a loan.
Yes.
My car is, people make fun of it because it's the smallest car in our office parking. It's a Mazda Demio, and I've had it now for 9 years.
Wow.
And for me, it's a testimony of what God can do. I mean, it cost me 498,000, everything from Japan to clearance in Mombasa to the driver and the fuel who brought it to my doorstep.
Yes.
And it was just, for me, it was a miracle just to see that God can do that and that God can honor that. And so probably just to say maybe things that now began to work for me. The first thing was I realized that I have to set proper financial goals. So initially, if you look at the investments, my goal was I want to surpass my peers. That really was my goal. But I realized that you need to set goals that make sense. And so every year I do set goals. My financial goals are around 3 areas. They are around giving. They are around living within our means. And they are around investing. And I haven't figured out investing. I'm still learning. And these things take time. I think when it comes to money, people are like, I want a quick kill. But it does, it does take time. Of course, giving is a complex, controversial, but very beautiful subject. But what I can say about giving is that obedience unlocks understanding. There are things that God has done, and I just say, only God can do this. And so also there is budgeting, which I know I have just talked about the budget. And I mean, I have seen it do miracles, not just for me, but I've also seen it work, in other people's life and at work. And so there was budgeting. And the last thing probably I would say is financial advice. And just getting solid financial advice. I know I came from a place where money was not conversations that were on the table, or people would do their stuff in secret, so you don't share this. But I realized that there is financial advice. There is financial advice on how to get out of debt. There is financial advice on how to, how to invest. There is advice, and you can get it from so many sources. One of the websites a blog that was shared, it's called Christian Personal Finance. That's ChristianPF.com. I think they renamed it to Seed Time. It's by Bob Lotich. I have followed Bob for over 10 years. And when Bob, I would read his blog, and when he would say, you need to do this, I would write it down, and I would make sure that I would do it so that I would get out of debt. So by the time I got out of debt and I was moving into other goals, then I realized that, okay, I also just need to seek out that information. I need to watch business news, because sometimes people just think that Pastor JMO is good in this, and so I'll go to him for information. Then things don't work out for you. But you have to learn. And this information is not rocket science. When you learn, you're like, oh, this is how it works. You can. The other day, I called a friend of mine. I remembered I have a friend at Central Bank. Then I called him. And so I just said, take me through this process. Then so we had a good conversation, and I was like, why have I never asked him about treasury bills and treasury bonds? It's not rocket science. And just maybe to mention about that, they now have a Treasury Mobile Direct, and you can transact from your phone. And I was like, this is so simple, but we imagine that things are rocket science. Or maybe there is shares. The first time I invested in shares, I took my bonus. My bonus was 80,000.
Yes.
And I put 80,000. I said, I want to remember this money, that I did a good thing with it. And I bought Kenya Airways shares for 78 shillings per share. The share fell to 2 shillings. I said, I'll never go back to the stock market.
Yes.
Thankfully, as I say, there are things that happen in the supernatural. God can just provide somebody and say, I think the way you're going about your investment is wrong. And they guide you on how to work out your shares. And you see, prosperity in that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Tosha, thank you so much for coming through for us today. This one says, hi. Say hi to Tosha. The biggest financial mistake we've ever done is to believe I could double my income in gambling. I'm sure that was a painful one. Oh, my goodness. Say hi to Tosha. This is... I like what I'm hearing. You haven't given us your name, but thank you for your SMS. Man, those are hard lessons to learn. But I'm glad that you were able to share this with us, because sometimes when you are at the first year, the first month repaying that loan, and that money was lost, you're thinking, will I ever finish? But you finished, and now you're building. So it is possible.
Yes,
we just need to be patient, and I love the fact that you said we need to learn. Learn. Look for information, it's available.
Yes, and maybe just the last thing that I want to say.
Yes.
Taking cognizant of the period that we are in. We are in the COVID period.
Yes.
So I mentioned about financial goals.
Yeah.
This is the point where you are unromantic about what you want, and so you can make very clear financial goals.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether you have money or no money. You can make those goals. The second thing is I just encourage people to reach out, for help and to give help. As Christians, that is what we are called to do.
Yes.
And seek out for advice. Do not die alone. This is a journey that no one has mastered.
Yeah.
So we can walk together.
Wow. Thank you very much. Well, keep listening to Family Radio 316. I hope today's financial clinic has been beneficial to you. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs, from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.